Hey, hey, happy Wonderland Wednesday! You know what that means? It's time for another episode of Inside Alicyn's Wonderland. You guys, today our special guest is Linsay Rousseau. I'm so excited to bring Linsay to our show. It's so funny. Last week we were chatting with Caitlin Robrock, and she brought up Linsay's name, and we had a last minute cancel, and I was checking out Linsay, and I was like, Linsay seems like she would be an amazing guest on the show. So it all worked out perfect. And I'm so excited to bring her onto the show today. She's an award-winning actress, best known for Alita in Transformers: War for Cybertron, as well as a ton of other roles in both video games, motion capture, and animation. So I hope you guys join me down the rabbit hole. And please welcome Linsay to Alicyn's Wonderland. Let's see. One more second. How's everybody doing there? Is everybody having a good week so far? What's up, Jeff? Hey, Peter. Hey, Sebastian. Good to see your face. Brickman Mosaic Art. Always good to have you on here. Jan Mort TV. Chloe, Angela, Tamar. Thank you for joining us. Peyton. Hey, Jeffrey. How's it going? Hunter. Thank you for your kind words. And what's up, Jordan Fernandez? Chris Brown. We got Curry Tyler in the house. You guys, I want you to know how much it means to me that those of you that really make an effort to show up week after week. We've been going for over a year now, and it is so much like Wonder Fam here. All the people that join in on a weekly basis. So thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. Okay, let me just shoot Linsay a quick text. And will you guys type in one word for how you all are feeling tonight? Hey, Michael Myers, you're doing well. Oh, Wonder Fam. I think we've coined a new term here. Hey, Chris, welcome. Okay, let's see. So let's see, Linsay. So go ahead and request to join. Let me see. Okay, I can invite. So guys, put your hands together for Linsay Rousseau. Hi!
Hello!
How are you?
Good. All right, let me tilt those back.
Okay. I know, it always
Instagram
changed
my framing.
Hey, I know, it totally does that. Hey, Linsay, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. And hello to everyone. Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, I love how you spell your name, by the way.
Well, you can thank my mother for that, but thank you.
As a person with a unique spelled name, I feel like it's such a good thing if you're a performer, because then you're easy to track down.
It's true. It's true. When I went to register for SAG, I was like, here's my stuff. And, oops, that's weird filters. Stop. And I was like, do you need to check and make sure someone has it? And they're like, no, you're fine.
They're like, we don't even need to check. Just trust us. You're golden.
They didn't need to.
Oh, well, it's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Sorry, I'm still trying to figure out this Instagram. I'm like, why is there now all the comments are up over your face? It's fine. I'm not even going.
Yes. Well, you can always swipe down. You can always tap on the comments, I think, too. Oh, tap on the screen above the comments to get rid of them if you need to. And for anybody that just might be tuning in for the first time, I want to let you guys know that down at the bottom, do you see there's a little box with question mark? If you have questions for Linsay, we'll try and save a few minutes at the end. So popping them in there and we'll do our best to get to them. Yay. How have we never met? I think that's so crazy, huh?
No, that's insane to me. I'm like, we know all the same people. I'm like, there has to have been a workshop or something at some point, or some mixer, and we just didn't realize we met each other.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be acquainted anyways. Yeah. Wow, you have such an interesting biography and such a cool and unique body of work, and I'm really excited to chat with you. It feels like we have a lot in common. Yeah. First off, I saw that both your parents are park rangers. And I think that's so cool. So did you grow up in the park system?
Yeah, we moved every couple years. So I lived in so many different places growing up. Yeah.
Wow. And what were your accommodations like? Were they like cabins or tents?
When we were younger, we lived in park housing, which was just a lot of, some of them were like old military bases. So it was houses. But then when we got older, we had, houses that were not on the park property, but off, and they commuted into work. So yeah.
Wow. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother. He is a stuntman actually here in LA.
No way.
Yeah.
So were you guys was nature your playground? Were you just
It really
constantly?
was. It
Yeah.
really was. Like we were constantly outside and building forts and just like, yeah, just the outdoors. And for both of us, like the outdoors is kind of where we go to rejuvenate and deal with stress, like hiking and camping and stuff like that. We're still both very, very active in that. And I scuba dive and yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, my family we're big campers too, and we have 3 years ago we bought a little travel trailer. So we go up and down, mainly Southern California because I
Yeah.
have a 5.5-year-old, and it's just was like one of our top priorities to be able to give him that gift of being able to be out in nature because
Yeah,
LA's just urban sprawl.
it is.
So
But it's really close to a lot of really amazing places. Like you can be in the woods in less than 30 minutes,
yeah,
depending where you live. So yeah.
yeah. What states did you mainly grow up in?
Let's see here. So I was born in North Carolina, and then we moved, so Great Smoky Mountains to Sequoia,
Sequoia, California?
yeah, up
Oh,
in
wow.
there, to where my brother was born, and then Gateway Arch in St. Louis, and then we moved to Cape Cod and lived in two different places there, and then Pennsylvania, and then Northern Virginia, and then that's where we settled. Like, so I went to high school in Northern Virginia and college, and then my parents retired from there. So yeah.
Wow, that's so amazing. I grew up in Massachusetts, not too far from Cape Cod.
Yay! Yeah, we lived in Wellfleet and Eastham.
How amazing. I don't think I've ever been camping out there. My family was not big campers. It's something we got into later, but
Yeah.
wow, that's so cool. And so you mentioned that your acting and your performing really grounded you throughout the process of moving around so much. Can you talk a little bit about what it was that grounded you in performing?
Yeah. So obviously, when you're younger, like moving is very stressful and chaotic. And in hindsight, I love that I moved a lot. But at the time, it's like new school, new friends, and that's always really hard to do, especially because a lot of the places we moved, people had lived there their whole lives. So it's kind of hard being the outside person. But music was obviously something I could do at home on my own, but it was also a way to connect with other people because it's like I would instantly be joining the bands, the orchestras, the choirs, as well as, doing community theater and, local dance studios and things like that. And so that for me was my easiest way to be able to make new friends and connect with people, as opposed to just trying to like navigate the school hallways and all the cliques and everything. So
Yeah. Middle schoolers are not generally nice.
oh, no. And and then at home, like if I was having stressful days or something, I'd just go and like play the piano for hours or something and practice or sing or something like that. So for me it was a passion. And I ended up becoming competitive, doing all the different musical like all state choirs and all state bands and all those things that you have to audition for. And but then it's like I could also just do it for fun for myself if I needed to.
Yeah. And so how many instruments do you play?
Now piano, flute, and piccolo. I also used to play.
Piccolo.
I played quadratoms and marching band.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, they're the drums that's like 4 or 5 drums out in front because I didn't want to play flute and marching band because it was stupid and I was bored. And so I was like, I'm just gonna play drums, and so they let me. And then when I was young, I also dabbled in the clarinet, but yeah.
Wow.
And then I trained in opera and musical theater, and so yeah.
So yeah, that's so interesting that you really have the foundation of performing and music, and then you later decided to join the army.
Yeah, I mean, I went to college before that too.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did go. I went to William and Mary for undergrad, and I studied sociology and cultural anthropology as well as music, and then also was doing local community theater. And I was a really big activist in college, so environmental issues and women's issues, human rights issues. I was a so many protests, I can't even keep track of them anymore. But then, you know, life happens, it throws you curveballs and you have to pivot. And, you know, I ended up in a really bad situation, and the Army seemed like really the only way out of it. And so that's how I ended up in the Army.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you
So
kind of carved out your own thing there too, doing journalism and
yeah,
photography.
so I knew, because I was like, okay, well, I'm doing this. Well, I'm going to do it smart. And I when I went to the recruiter, I specifically said, you know, I want to be public affairs and combat photography. And like, we don't have any openings. And I was like, okay, bye. And they're like, oh, we have an opening. And I was like, I thought you might. So yeah, I was very specific about that. And so when I was in the military, I was doing photography and videography and writing articles and you know, making videos and things like that. So yeah.
Did you have, were they training you on that kind of thing, or had college taught you?
Well, obviously, because I'd already been to college, so writing for me was something that came very easily because I'd had to do so much of that. But I did go to advanced training, military training for this, but it totally changed. So I went to go train to be like a radio DJ, like Good Morning Vietnam, or a TV anchor, you know, at one of the armed forces television and radio stations. And while we were at our training, we got word that the Army was changing how they were doing things. And instead of going to a TV station or something, we were now all going to be tiny little units at these infantry brigades, which were newly formed. And so we were like, you know, there was only 3 of us, and we were just essentially the internal public affairs team and photography team for this 4,000 person brigade. So I was not in a nice posh studio like my little Air Force friends were.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you had to do boot camp and all that.
Oh yeah, all those things. Yeah.
Do you feel that the Army taught you discipline?
I mean, I feel like I was definitely very disciplined as a person anyways, just because, you know, my parents raised us like that. You know, we were kind of the overachievers, you know, just really dedicated to our academics. And then obviously like with music and with all of that, and I did a lot of volunteer work. So I always felt like that was something I already kind of naturally had. But obviously the Army makes you even more diligent about, you know, that type of thing.
So when you were in the Army, what were your goals performing, or were you hoping to take that out of it, or were you?
Well, I mean, obviously I obviously had to put music and theater on the side while I had this detour in my life. So photography was my artistic outlet, you know, when I was in the military, and videography, you know, creating, I just, you know, I really got into learning composition and lighting and all of that. Because, you know, I was doing combat photography. So it's like, you're out, you know, sometimes it's really chaotic and it's hectic and in the middle of whatever. And other times you have time to take with it. And then also having to create, you know, morale videos and memorial videos and things like that. And, you know, really using, well, especially a musical ear for that, because you're adding music and mixing and everything. But yeah, the acting and the, you know, the hardcore music was put on hold for several years.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been other performers that have made that transition, like Rob Riggle and Arlie Ernie and stuff. Have you connected with anyone else that in Hollywood that made the similar transition as you did?
Yeah, there's actually an organization called Veterans in Media and Entertainment, and I connected with them pretty early on. I actually connected with them when I was still in San Francisco, and they used to be pretty active, and it was you know, I was able to do quite a bit of networking and get to meet people. Unfortunately, they've kind of changed how they operate now, and they're more focused on like the below the line people as opposed to the performers, and so there hasn't been as many opportunities. But I did meet, you know, a couple really great people who had done, you know, who had similar experiences, and have met just on my own, you know, like Zeke Alton, which if you haven't had him on the show, have him on the show. He's amazing. He's retired Navy, just massive badass, but also a brilliant actor. So yeah, there's a few of us around, not many, but there's a few of us here in this city.
Yeah. So how was that transition? Like,
Um,
uh,
it was interesting. I was medically discharged. And
mhm.
so I did take a little bit of time. I was on unemployment trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I was like, well, I've been doing this journalism thing and this photography thing. Maybe I should just keep doing it. And I was like, but I also really like international relations. So I took several months, to study for the GREs, which is the graduate entrance exam. And I applied to like 5 international relations master's programs and like 5 journalism programs. And then I was accepted to all of them, but one of the schools was UC Berkeley, and
Uh-huh.
I always wanted to go to Berkeley, to Cal. And so I was like, well, decision made. And so I drove from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, all the way to Berkeley, and
Wow.
2008. And yeah, spent 2 years at their journalism school and getting my master's in journalism. And then I was working for PBS Frontline while I was there as an associate producer and a researcher. And then I was also a Carnegie Fellow for ABC News's investigative program in New York for a little bit. And then also doing freelance stuff as well, because you're a working journalist while you're pursuing your master's. So yeah.
Wow. And you also, let's see, you had the opportunity to have your project produced, your UC Berkeley Graduate School project, Rape in the Fields.
Yeah, so that was for my master's thesis. I spent 2 years investigating the sexual assault of female farm workers in America. So I drove
Oh,
all over California and like North
wow.
Carolina and Pennsylvania, doing all of these interviews and research. I wrote up my article ended up getting published through the Center for Investigative Reporting, and then Frontline was busy with a lot of other projects at the time, and I had actually made the decision after I graduated and had finished up this project, made the decision that I was going to step away from journalism and return to performing, to acting. And I got a call a year later saying, hey, we want to produce your story now. And I was like, oh, great. And they're like, but we're not going to bring you back on as a journalist. We just want all your resources and your sources and your interviews and everything. And so I thought hard about it, because I was like, this is my baby. I don't know
Hmm.
if I can do this, but I was like, no, this is a story that really, really needs to get told. And so, yeah, I helped them and gave them everything that I have. And it came out really well. It's been their most award-winning documentary ever, which was amazing. They produced an English version of it and then a Spanish version of it for Telemundo. So, it hurt my pride a little bit, but I was really happy that the story got out. So yeah.
It sounds almost like it was the perfect situation, because if they'd asked you to come back,
Right. I would have been like, ooh, I don't
who
know. Like,
knows, you might have gotten sucked back in.
yeah, exactly. And my path could have gone very, very differently.
Wow, that's so amazing.
So yeah.
So did you stay in this Bay Area after you graduated?
Yeah, so when I left journalism, I decided to go back into theater.
Mhm.
And so I did theater pretty much full time for the next 6 years while I was in the San Francisco Bay Area. But then I also got my substitute teaching certification. So I was working as a substitute teacher and a paraprofessional, and then teaching kids musical theater and singing lessons, and working as a brand ambassador for a granola bar company while doing theater. And I was literally just rotating from one show to the next. Like if I was in rehearsals for one, I was in performances for another, and just overlapping. And
Wow.
yeah, I did that for like 6 years, and then was like, I need to make a living and not kill myself and get some sleep. And that's
Yeah.
when I kind of, made the transition into doing voiceover, mostly voiceover, and then, some on-camera work as well.
Up north?
Yeah, in San Francisco. Yeah, so I kept doing theater for a couple of years after that. So yeah, I started and did VO for a couple of years in San Francisco, and then finally was like, this is kind of working out for me. I'm really enjoying this, like having decent success. If I really am serious about this, I need to move to LA, because that's where the big dogs are, and I knew I really, really wanted to do, I love video games, and
Yeah.
you know, San Francisco obviously has a big gaming industry, but all the AAA titles are still casting out of LA. You know, occasionally there's some casting out of San Francisco, you know, that I'll see through my San Francisco agent, you know, but the bulk of it is coming through LA. And obviously all of animation is down here. And there's a lot more work to be had here than, you know, San Francisco, even though so many of us work remotely. And I do have, you know, regional agents and everything, but you know, it makes a big difference being here.
Yeah. And how was that, you know, getting your feet, you know, just even coming from, you know, this bucolic, mountainous, you know, nature focused childhood, and then kind of winding up in this, you know, concrete jungle here. Was that difficult?
I mean, again, I love it. I mean, I was in the Bay Area, you know, which is also very metropolitan. You know, I was in the Berkeley side of things, but I was in San Francisco all the time and watched it change drastically as all the tech companies moved in. But for me, honestly, I think because I moved so much growing up, I'm just very adaptable. I'm just like, okay, this is where I am now. Now it's home. But like I said, you know, it's so easy to get to anywhere to go camping or hiking or swimming or scuba diving or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing. And also I'm vegan. So it's nice to be able to like have many options for eating.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What are some of your favorite camp spots? Yeah.
You know, down here, I haven't done a lot. I'm actually in December, I'm going to be camping in Joshua Tree in Death Valley. So I'm very excited about that. I did camp in Catalina last year.
I decided
at Two Harbors?
At Two Harbors or?
No, at Avalon. So there's a campground you just walk up because it was the middle of the pandemic and I was like, you know what, I need to get out. And I did like a big long scuba diving weekend and just like took all my camping gear and my scuba gear and then like hiked 2 miles from the port to the campsite. And it was like the cheapest trip ever.
Except for the ferry.
Yeah, except for the ferry, right. Yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about Alita.
Yeah, sure.
I'm curious, was Transformers one of did you grow up with that franchise? Were you a fan when you were a kid?
I did. I watched it. Yeah. I mean, I definitely watched like the original animated series. And my parents every year would give us Transformers because my parents were big fans of whatever toys we had. Like they wanted to make sure it was also something that would like stimulate our mind. And you know, Transformers are very tactile and you have to figure out how to put them in together and so forth. So I did, you know, grow up with that. I wasn't like deep into the lore, you know, reading the comic books or everything, but obviously, you know, watched it, was very aware of it and how massive of a franchise it is, you know, and that there's just so many amazing fans and it's had so many different iterations. So it's like anyone in this country, if you say Transformer, they're going to know what you're talking about. They might not be able to like, they'll probably be able to name like Megatron and Optimus Prime. That might be it. But I think pretty much everyone in the country would know what a Transformer is and know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it like, you know, booking that role? What was that experience? Were you so excited?
Yeah. It was amazing. So when I auditioned for it, I had no idea what it was. It was code named. They changed the script so you couldn't, you know, because everybody in the city is very, very worried about, you know, leaks and so forth. So I didn't know what it was when I auditioned and then totally forgot about it. Like we always do in this industry, audition, forget about it, move on. And then like 3-4 months later, I got a phone call or I got an email saying, hey, you have a callback, an in-person callback. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, for this project. And I had to look up what it was. I didn't even remember. And I was just like, oh, okay, it's a soldier character was all I knew. And so went in for the directed callback. And that's when they told me what it was. And I was just like, oh, this is a big deal. Okay. No pressure. No pressure. You know, and then, you know, was lucky enough to book the role, which was fantastic, obviously. But yeah, I definitely know when I had that moment, they told me what it was. Like, okay, yeah.
I gotta go.
I loved the character. You know, she's a soldier, she's a warrior. I was really able to relate with her on a lot of levels, which was really nice.
Yeah. And how's it been working on the project?
Well, I mean, we recorded like 2 years before the show aired, you know, because they did the recordings first before the animation, and they had camera roughs on us, you know, so the animators could use our facial expressions when they were animating. So I recorded all of season 1 in one session, and then I think like 6 months later I came in and recorded season 2, and then a couple months later recorded
In
season
one
3.
session?
Yeah,
Wow.
because it's only 6 episodes, 20-30 minute episodes per season. And so,
It's
yeah,
wonderful.
the 4-hour
So,
session knocked out the entire season. And so, you know, I'd already recorded all 3 seasons long before season 1 dropped on Netflix. So yeah.
yeah. And has the fan response been
Oh,
good?
it was amazing. Like as soon as I was able to make because you know the character Alita 1 she's not a well-known transformer, but she should be, because like, you know, if you look at the comic books, she has a much more prominent role in the comic books. She's, you know, she's essentially Optimus Prime's right-hand bot. She like leads her own army of a lot of the other female Autobots, and she's just this amazing character. But in the animated series and of course the features, she briefly appeared in the G1 version, and that was about it. So I was amazed when I was able to announce it, and I started getting tweets and Instagram messages from people, and realized like there's this whole fan base out there who just loves this character, and we're so excited that she was finally gonna have a chance to really shine, and you know they could hear more of her story. So it was really great to see just the outpouring of love from fans over the character, and of course that there was a new Transformers franchise coming out, and yeah.
And you started some hashtags with Jeff Burns, right?
Yeah, shout out to Jeff, who I know is here in the chat. Yeah, we were just brainstorming, you know, like, well, how can we get some stuff trending? Or I don't even know if it ever trended. It probably didn't, but you know, it made us feel better. But it's like, okay, so she's this warrior, she's this leader. I'm a soldier, she's a soldier. And that's kind of where we came up with the Alita Army hashtag, because, and she did in the comics, she did have like her Alita Army.
Yeah.
And then also it was really, because, you know, one of the big things I really advocate for in this industry is like, you know, I'm a huge geek, and, you know, women and, you know, female identifying people have a lot of times felt very excluded from the geek sphere. You know, there's been a lot of sexism and abuse and, you know, harassment when people who are not white cis males try to find a place for themselves in the geek community. And it was really important to me to try and highlight all of the amazing female characters that are in the geek world. So in animation and video games and comics, you know, and so that's where the Be Alita came from. Was I really wanted to take this opportunity to, you know, obviously Alita 1 is this amazing female character. But I was like, but there's so many others out there. And I bet there's people wondering, like, for the little girls out there, you know, who are like, well, you know, comics are for boys. It's like, no. And I had people tell me that, well, Transformers are for boys. And I was like, you stop right there. And so, you know, and with Jeff's help, obviously, we every day, you know, we put out a tweet highlighting a different amazing female character that is in the geek sphere. And have actually gotten really great messages back from some people, you know, saying like, wow, thanks so much for doing this. And, you know, my daughter loves your character, and it's so great to see like there's other female characters out there. And so that's been really heartwarming to hear that, because we all just want to find our place in this crazy world.
Yeah. And you've also segued your love of geek culture into a podcast live YouTube.
So this is another, you know, because all of us in voiceover were lucky enough to be able to keep working during the pandemic, which was wonderful, you know, with our home studios. But you know, I was like, I had a little more free time because I wasn't having to drive around to on-camera auditions, which I could be in the car for hours sometimes, or you know, I had fewer studio sessions, well, no studio sessions for months and months and months. So everything was from home. And I was like, I was producing and streaming for a tabletop gaming company for a D&D Twitch stream, and was thinking of ways to expand content. I was like, I've always wanted to do a talk show. I used to do a lot of hosting back when I was a journalist. And so my good friend Genevieve Marie and I decided to start this talk show called The Rollout.
Is that
August,
because
September,
of your
October.
Transformers gig?
Huh?
Is it called The Rollout because of your Transformers?
No, it was actually inspired by because we originally started as a D&D tabletop gaming kind of focused show, because that was the network we were on. And so like our original branding was like a D20, and so the rollout was like, okay, you're rolling dice, but we're also rolling out new news. So, but it also is a Transformers phrase, so it's like all the little things.
Kismet.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. So we started that over a year ago. It would have been last August. And then, we kind of took it on our own and decided, about 6 months ago, we've done enough with tabletop gaming. Like we're both really big into video games and obviously everything else geek culture. She's a world-renowned cosplayer. And so we now just kind of cover everything from film and TV and video games and comics and anime, and we do it every week. So,
and you want to tell everybody where they can check it out?
Yeah, you guys can go to YouTube, just YouTube/C/The Rollout. We drop new episodes every Friday at noon Pacific, or if podcasts are your thing, you can find the podcast version of it on any podcast server out there. We're hosted by Anchor, so I know you can find it on Sirius and a bunch of the other podcast servers. But yeah, we premiere the episodes live, but of course they're always out there. So I'm sure we have an episode for everyone, because we've covered so many things now. So yeah.
So you record them on your own time, but then premiere them live. Is that what you do? That's, I think, what
for the
we're
first
switching
6
over to.
months, we were doing them live on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like early in the pandemic. That wasn't too bad because both of us had really flexible schedules. She also works, my co-host works at Disneyland as well. And so she was furloughed. But then when work really started picking up a lot more, she had to go back to Disney. I was having to do studio sessions and, a lot of other things. We decided, what, and also Twitch just wasn't the right medium for us either. We decided, we're just going to do YouTube and podcast. And we're going to pre-record them because it's just much more flexible, especially trying to get guests as well. It's, it's a little easier, especially if you're dealing with time zones and stuff, to be able to be flexible when it comes to recording.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Now I'm curious, you also enjoy cosplaying as well as your co-host Genevieve.
Sometimes. I will occasionally dress up.
What was that?
I said occasionally I will dress up. I won't call myself a cosplayer. Like what she does is far beyond what I have ever done.
Well, what about LARPing?
I've always wanted to, and I never have. Like I used to do a lot of reenactment actually. Growing up, I used to volunteer at this 18th century colonial farm. And so I worked there for many, many, many years and then would come back once a year to do these festivals. So I did a lot of historical reenactment, and then used to play with foam medieval weapons in high school before LARPing was even a thing. We just thought we were having fun beating each other with foam weapons, and then apparently it becomes a thing. And I know several people who are big into the LARPing community, but I've actually never done it. Yeah, gonna have to at one point. I think we'll see.
Girl, we gotta get our LARP on someday.
I mean, I have elf ears and a bow, so lots of swords. So.
Now, also, I know that you are a proudly queer performer and you're very active with LGBTQ+. So I was wondering, how do you think the industry has really changed or improved in terms of queer representation since you began?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And that's something that, I've been talking to a lot of people about lately, because I've I know JP with QueerVox well, and, I've taught for them a couple times. And the fact that an organization like QueerVox even exists is fantastic, you know, to have a safe space for you know, queer performers to be able to talk and communicate and everything. But it's really interesting, you know, we originally, you know, especially in voiceover, started seeing, and on camera too, the big push for more representation in media in general, you know. So now we're getting, you know, ethnicities from all over the place, you know, better represented in film and television. And so while there was a lot of progress with that, you know, the one thing people were talking about was like, well, there still isn't that much progress when you talk about queer representation. It's like, okay, we have those iconic gay characters, and like we have the L word, you know, and lesbian characters and stuff. But it was still kind of taboo, and people didn't really know how to do it right. But over the past, I would say within the past 5 years, and maybe even the past two or 3 years, I've definitely seen it's become much more important. Not just in the adult sphere, but in, you know, obviously you do animation as well, but it's been now an issue in the kids sphere as well. And, you know, where previously you have like Legends of Korra, and the creators were like, well, she was always supposed to be a lesbian, but we weren't allowed to do it. Nickelodeon wouldn't let us. And now Nickelodeon like has amazing queer characters in some of their shows, and obviously Disney and all that. So it's really exciting to see that there is more representation of the whole gamut. So it's not just lesbian and gay. It's like you have shows that have the non-binary characters. And you know, I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to see a show that just nails representation, watch Sex Education on Netflix. It's not for everyone, but it is a show that I'm just like, they understood and just represent the whole spectrum. You know, and now you do have casting, and this is a big sticky topic right now, because, you know, those of us who got into voiceover, we do because we can be whoever we want, and we can, you know, actors, but you do now have casting directors who are like, hey, we'd like to cast authentically, and love it or hate it. And I have friends on both sides of the spectrum that hate that they're asking it, and I have friends that love that they're asking it. You know, it's at least something that casting is aware of, and that's something I really appreciate. And now I think most any animated series you turn on is gonna have some queer character. You know, just because we have seen changes over the years, and then obviously in the on-camera world as well. I mean, it's still not where it probably needs to be, but that's the case for female representation. I mean, women are still horribly represented in the industry. I mean, you know, the percentage of roles from male to female is still just, you know, there's a huge
numbers on that.
You know, and then if you're a woman over 40, it's even worse. So it's like, you know, there's a lot of work to be done in this industry, but at least it's being talked about.
Yeah. And what changes would you like to see happen?
You know, I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day, because we were talking about disability representation, because I have a couple friends who work in that sphere. And one of the things we were talking about is like, you know what, we would just like to see opportunities open for everyone, and that it's not just defaulted white male. Because, you know, like with a lot of the on-camera auditions I get, it's like, and I coach people on auditions too, and it's like the delivery guy, default male, you know, the post person, default male, the bartender, default male. It's like, and the Gina Davis Institute has a you know, is great about this, is like, you know, if you have a script, you have these characters, if it's not pertinent to the story, what or who they are, make it open to anyone. Does it matter if this character is in a wheelchair? Is that going to impact the story? No? Okay, then let's open up casting to anybody and everybody, you know. And she, you know, she always says, if you have a script, go through the script and just make half the roles female. And I think the same thing could be said for, you know, other minority representation. And you know, there's been a lot of talk about blind casting, and whether or not that actually has worked well. I don't know. People were talking about Bridgerton and kind of the blind casting that they were doing.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that term.
Blind. So basically blind casting meaning it doesn't matter what the ethnicity is. Like white mom, black son, whatever. It's just, you're casting whomever is right for the job. And so for me, I would like to see that where it's like, okay, every script that comes out now is going to be 50-50 gender parity. And, whatever roles, if it's not crucial to the story, then it can be open to anybody, whoever, ends up being right for the role. And I feel like there's still so many restrictions put on this industry. And, and so much of it is like, okay, well, if you're pretty, it's a lot easier for you to succeed in Hollywood. And, so it just, I would like, and I also would like to see more authentic stories coming out, as opposed to things feeling stereotyped or shoehorned. But that goes to the larger conversation about getting people, you have to get those voices in the writer's room, in the director's chair, in the producer's, ranks, because even if you're creating stories that have like diverse faces, if it's still mostly middle-aged white men making all the choices, you're still not going to get those authentic stories. And so I think it's really, really important that we try to lift up these minority voices and get their stories told, and that, people in all the crew positions, from the engineers to the gaffers and the grips and everything, it's like we make sure that it feels like a safe space for everybody to be able to work. And that then I feel like, Shonda Rhimes won't be an anomaly. Like, she won't be the only person doing this. Like, no, now this is just the norm. Everybody's telling these stories.
Yeah.
Thank
you for sharing that. In a completely different transition, can you tell us about your experience on To Tell the Truth?
Oh my God. Yeah.
How crazy was that?
That was so fun. Yeah. So I'd never heard of the show. I don't watch reality TV or game shows or whatever, but when I got the audition, it was literally, they're just like, okay, you're just going to improv with the casting director. I was like, okay, great. I've done improv for 20 years. Let's do it. And literally for the audition, they're just like, okay, so you are the lead chef to the president. Do whatever you want with that. Pick who the president is, blah, 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 and just go. And I literally just like carried this scene, and they asked me questions, and this went on for like 10-20 minutes. And my friend was here watching it happen because I was in the middle of coaching him when I had to do this audition.
It was
and
like
I hung up.
audition?
It was a Zoom.
It was on Zoom.
Yeah. And I hung up, and he's like, I totally believed everything you said. And then I got cast. And so, yeah, it was like, we show up, and, I think a couple days before they told me, what character I was going to be playing. It was going to be a horse dentist was the character I was going to be playing. Well, this was like a week before. So I did all this research on horse dentistry and everything, and had a conference call with, a woman who actually was a horse dentist. But then literally the day before, they're like, we lost the horse dentist. Now you're a ghost hunter. And so I had to do all this research into ghost hunting. So we show up for filming. This would have been back in January. So very strict COVID protocols. But, they dress us all the same, and there's 3 of us. And, if anyone's seen the show, basically there's celebrity guests, and they just take turns asking you questions, and you have to answer these questions. And I just was apparently the best at bullshitting answers, and they totally bought me and were like, she is the ghost hunter. And I was like, nope, actually I wasn't. And then that went into another round where they're like, so they eliminated one person, and then there was 2 of us left, and they're like, okay, now you have to guess who's the real Simon Says caller. And we got through the end of that, and the celebrity guests are like, well, we really think it's you, but we also know you weren't really a ghost hunter, and you convinced us you were, so we're gonna not be sure if you are for this either. But it was a lot of fun.
You were too good.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was a lot of fun, because that's one of the things, and that's one of the reasons I love theater and, improv is like, you're acting on your feet, and it's like, you don't know what's going to get thrown at you, and you just have to be able to go and pivot and commit. And this, applies to anything in acting. It's like, make a choice and double down. I think one of the questions they asked was, what entertainment do you think is the most accurately represents what ghosts are really like? And I was just like, oh shit. And I was like, season 3 of Supernatural. I watched all of Supernatural. I was like, I don't know if it was season 3 or not, but I just like went on this elaborate discussion about what apparently happened in season 3 of Supernatural, and they were like totally sold on that. So it's like, you know what? Just if you commit, just make that choice, commit. And if people think, and I learned this in the Army, honestly, when I had to do my sergeant's board, it's like, if people think you know what you're talking about, they're going to believe you, even if you don't know what you're talking about.
That's true. That's true. I remember when I was in the Army.
You got to commit. You just commit. Yes, when I was in the Army. But do your research. You know, that's the other thing too, because it's like you have to, and this is like with acting, you know, and I had this happen in several stage productions where, you know, someone misses a cue or something goes wrong with the tech, and all of a sudden, you know, you're having to like extend the scene to wait for whatever to get fixed or the person to make their entrance. And it's like, you just have to know that character and know that world and just go. You can't just stop the show in the middle of the show because it's a live performance. And so I think those skills really, really helped me in that, you know, it's like, just go with it. Trust that you understand this character and you understand this world, and then just play.
And so people want to know where they can watch it. Is it on YouTube or anything?
Oh, to tell the truth, yeah, it's syndicated. I don't know. I keep getting my residual checks. So it was on ABC, or was it CBS? I honestly don't. No, it was ABC. So I think it's on Hulu or YouTube or one of those things. But yeah, it was Ghost Hunter and Simon Says Caller was the episode. And there's like 3 or 4 different things per episode because it's an hour-long show. And I think I was also the same episode as like, who's the real Rockette? So if you can Google that, Jeff's in the chat. He can find anything. Jeff, if you find the clip, post it in the chat.
If you do find it, let me know and we'll share.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a copy of it because I found it when it came out and downloaded it and was able to get it. So yeah. It was fun.
Yeah. So in which ways do you think that your physical martial arts training have been beneficial for your voice acting?
Oh, I would say that and my military experience, my combat experience has definitely helped, specifically voiced over with video games, and with like Alita 1, because it's, you know, I do a lot of games where I have to fight and die, and I'm a very physical performer, so it's like, you know, and you don't have to be a fighter to know, you can learn how to do these things. But for me, it's just natural. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm swinging a long sword, or I'm shooting, or I'm punching, or blah, 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 blah. Where am I getting hit? So it's like, I'm used to knowing how to move my body to do that, and to be able to know. And it's obviously, it's heightened vocalization, you know, because if you're actually in a real fight or training or something, you're not making as much noise. Yeah, exactly. So for that, it really definitely, I think, helped inform a lot of the action type roles that I've had to play. And then obviously when you're looking at motion capture, it definitely translates into that, because you have to do different movement things and, you know, be proficient in, depending on, you know, what type of game it is. They want to make sure they can call you in to do a lot of different things. And then, you know, on camera stuff as well, knowing how to fight for film and things like that. But but specifically for voiceover, I would say for video games, it's definitely had the biggest impact. Yeah.
And do you take any current stage fighting classes or anything like that?
Yeah. So I mean, for actual, I still train in wushu and Muay Thai, just actual, and then I do train with this veteran stunt performer who he's been in the industry for like 20 years, who teaches a, you know, fighting for film class every week. And so yeah, because, you know, when you're actually doing actual martial arts and actual fighting and actual combat, it is quite a bit different than doing it for film, because in film you have to change up a lot of your stances, because it's like you don't want to block your face, and
Okay.
you know, obviously you're having to cheat, so you're not actually hitting the person. You know, and then same with motion capture. It's like, okay, well, you're going to be fighting this far away, and then the animator is going to move you in, and so it's taking the foundation you already have, but just like anything in acting, learning to apply it to that medium and having to tweak the technical aspects to fit what you're performing for.
Wow. Yeah. It's an ongoing practice, huh?
It is. It
And
is.
it's a fairly, you know, I mean, it's still evolving, the world of motion capture and
It
everything. So
is.
it's great that you're, you know, already established in that field.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's been and I'd never even heard of it till I moved to LA. I mean, obviously, like I'd heard of Lord of the Rings and Gollum, and so I was aware of what motion capture was, but hadn't even thought about it until I moved down here, and then really, you know, obviously got into voiceover, and through voiceover learned about this amazing world of motion capture. And it's a very small community. It's a very small community of people. So yeah.
And do you enjoy the changes? I mean, much longer days, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're doing. So, you know, if you're brought in as like a voice actor to do just performance capture, cinematic scenes, you know, depending on how long your scene is, that could be a half day or a full day shoot, an 8-hour shoot. But if it's an in-game day, then yeah, you're there doing all the motion movement cycles. I will say it's not like a film set. You know, for a film on camera, you can be on set for 12, 14 hours. Motion capture, like I have never been on set for, well, no, usually it's 8-hour days. When I was doing the project for Riot Games, it was a little different, and we had longer days, you know, like I think we had like a 10-hour day for that, but it's not quite as grueling as like on-camera productions can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel up to taking a few questions from the audience?
Let's do it. Yes.
Okay. All right, guys, get those questions in now if you have any. Out of every character that you voiced, which one was your biggest challenge?
Oh, challenge. That's a really good question. You know what? It's interesting because like different things have different challenges.
Yeah.
Like Alita 1 was challenging just because it's like I had to really dive deep for her, and had to like I had to delve back into some of my military experiences, which was not necessarily pleasant. And thank huge shout out to Phil Bach for being the most amazing director ever, and supportive, but really pushing you, but also making sure you're okay. But then other things are challenging, like when I had to do Deathloop, I swear I had already died every way possible in a game. Like when I did Rage 2, I was like, I've literally died any way you could possibly die in a game. And then I did Deathloop, and they just threw these new crazy ways of dying at me. And I'm just like, okay, so how does it sound to get punched in the gut, pushed through a window, and then the window slams down and decapitates you? And I'm like, well, that doesn't really make a sound. And they're like, well, no, we need a sound. And so you're like, okay, this is what I think this would sound like. So you know, so those always have challenges too, because you're just like, you know, and that's kind of also the fun about it. It's like, because you're part of the creative process. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna make this my own. Like, well, this is how I think it's gonna sound, and now that's how it sounds. So.
Can you do it for us right now?
Oh, let's see. So it was like, because like you have to get the sharp, and then it cuts off the circulation, or it cuts off the vocal cords. So yeah, and then like, you know, getting your throat slit is always fun, because like you drink a little bit of water and gargle it up and spit all over the place.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah. So many ways to die.
So many ways to die. That's gonna be the story of like my autobiography or something.
Okay. I just think this is funny because Michael Myers is asking you a question. I guess I can't share it. If you have any favorite Halloween movies. Oh, I see, because this one's still open. So literally Michael Myers is asking you this question. So
oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I have to say I am not a horror fan. Yeah. But I do love thrillers. So I was like, I do love The Nightmare Before Christmas. Does that count? I feel like that counts, right?
That definitely counts.
I always watch it every year, like around Halloween, because I love it so much.
Have you watched it yet this year?
I haven't watched it yet this year. I know I'm going to.
Only a few more days.
Yeah, and then like Hocus Pocus is also very fun. You know, so I like stuff like that. Yeah, I'm very excited for the Hocus Pocus remake too, because I love Adler. She's like an idol to me.
Yay! Let's see. If you could live inside a world of a TV or a TV show or movie, which one would you live inside of?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so hard.
Good question.
I have different answers for different reasons. Like, okay, obviously the Star Wars world would be amazing because who doesn't want to play with lightsabers? I love that.
It's kind of scary though. It's like so many people dying.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm gonna be frozen in kryptonite. But then I'm also like, The Witcher would be really cool because like I would love to be like a badass shield maiden in that and maybe have some, you know, magic.
Magic.
Yeah, that is a great question, by the way. And I'm like, so many things for so many reasons. I think just because I am such a huge Star Wars geek, I think I'm gonna have to go with Star Wars. But I have lots of other thoughts. The Marvel universe would also be super, super awesome, but that spans so many different things. It's like, you know what though? I would have to say, oh no, I take it back. I'm a big Whovian, so I think I'd have to go with Doctor Who just because then I can go anywhere in time and space. So literally,
limitless.
I've got it all covered. I can go to all the places.
It's limitless. Wow. Yeah, they take a lot of time to explore.
Yeah.
Jeff Burns has a great question. What's it been like to teach military? I don't know where that question just went.
Military combat VO.
Yep, to other actors.
It's actually been really great. You know, because I was a teacher for so long. I do love teaching, and I just like I never thought because I'm just a working actor. Like I have idols that like you know, like who I'm like, oh, well, you have way much more experience than I do. I have no business teaching. But then I had, you know, the Help Network reach out to me about teaching. And then I had Queer Vox reach out to me about teaching. I was like, oh, I guess people do care what I think and my experience. But both times that I'm teaching again for Help next month. And it's really great because, you know, it's a very unique way of acting and learning how to do it properly and learning how to do it safely because being a singer my whole life, I'm such a stickler for vocal health, such a stickler. And so to be able to get these people behind the mic and just offer some redirects and get them to really go to that place. And then, hey, if you could just tweak your breathing a little, let's support a little bit more with the diaphragm and then just see the transition and how people can go from being, you know, because a lot of people are very intimidated by military call outs and efforts. For me, I just felt like it was a natural fit. And yeah, it's just been so great. And I'm glad, you know, that people seem to like the classes and that I have something to offer, which is great. Because that's all I really like. That's why I'm in this industry and why I like voiceover so much. It's like, if you've got something to help someone else, just do it. Like if there's something I can do to help someone else, you know, succeed in their career, like I'm not threatened by that. Like, great, go book that amazing job. Like do it. Because
Katie Lee always said that when she got started in voiceover, Russie Taylor was like, there's plenty of room for everybody. Come on in.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? And because I do on camera, and I see this so much in the on camera world, like there is so much competition, and you know, everyone feels like someone else is a threat to them, and you know, it's like, oh, well, you're only friends with me because you want something from me, and I'm like, no, like I am so happy, you know, like my old roommate, I was able to get him on the Loop group for Marvel's What If, and that ended up leading to them offering him a role. And I was like, I had a Loop coordinator reach out and was like, hey, we need like young and ethnic. And I was like, let me call my ex-roommate. And I was like so excited when I found out that happened, you know? And so it's like, I love hearing things like that. It's like, because yeah, like you said, there's room for everyone.
Do you do a lot of looping?
I don't do a ton. I have done some. I was lucky enough to be able to be called in to work on Black Widow, because they needed a woman who could do fighting efforts. So I did a lot of the fighting efforts for the other widows when Scarlett Johansson fought them. And then I was called on to work on The Boys, the TV show, Amazon's The Boys as well. I love looping. I absolutely adore it. And if anyone has the magic answer as to how to be able to do more of it, let me know. But looping is one of my favorite things because it's like it's improv and it's, you know, you're just constantly throwing new stuff at you, which is so fun.
Yeah, it's fun to be also working in community, you know, that
Yeah.
work family.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know we're at about time, and I just want to see if there are
Any more? I got you.
they're asking, have you voiced or dubbed any anime?
So anime is still something that like I have not done a ton of, and obviously, you know, a lot of it was very much centralized to Texas. Prior to the pandemic, things have opened up here, but I did a guest spot on Sailor Moon Super S, and then did another guest spot on Jeff. You probably know this better than I do. A show that came out a couple months ago, which had 2 lesbian lead characters, which was great. I played the mom of one of them. Adachi and Shimuri, something like that. And then I worked on 70 Deadly Sins, which just came out last week, I guess. So a few things here and there.
Yeah, it's a good amount. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Linsay, it's been so lovely chatting with you and getting to know all about you and
Thanks so much for
your
asking
story.
me.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. And so where can our fans find you across the interweb?
Well, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Linsay Rousseau. Just make sure you spell my name right. I'm the only one. Like I said, you can find my talk show on YouTube, The Rollout, which Jeff has pinned the link in the chat. Thank you so much. We drop new episodes every Friday at noon Pacific. And then occasionally, just follow my social media. I pop up and will guest on friends' D&D Twitch streams every now and then. And yeah, a little. And then, of course, Transformers Wars for Cybertron on Netflix. You can check out those 3 seasons there. And if you play video games, you've probably killed me. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Linsay. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a great night. Okay. Bye.